everyone. This is Renee Huff and Louise Mason from the Looks Creepy Cool podcast, and I'm the owner of Haunted House FearFest Film and Video Game Festival. Louise is a judge for the festival for this year, and she's a producer for the podcast, and she has so many other jobs that I can't even keep track. But we're so happy to have Marciel Delgado and Erica Jackson. Marciel is the winner of the 2023 Haunted House FearFest Award for Best Paranormal Short and Best Special Effects for the film Twilight Time. Erica Jackson is the main actress who plays Violet in the film. Twilight Time is a short paranormal film, which is described as after the death of her best friend, Violet begins to experience sleep paralysis. But as the nights go by, her nightmare begins to turn into something very familiar and equally sinister. We are super happy and excited to welcome Marciel and Erica to the Looks Creepy Cool podcast. Hey!
Happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
Hey! Yeah!
Happy to be here, you guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Of course. So we will get right into it. Marciel, like you were a director, writer, and producer, and at the film festival, there was one version that was submitted, and then you had an extended version after the festival. So my main question to you is just like indie filmmakers, they wear many hats during production. So what are the roles that you found yourself taking on besides directing? And how do they contribute to your overall vision of the film?
Good question. Honestly, I say this as a general rule of thumb. I started out doing this as wanting to be a writer. Anything that I do, any type of job or belt that I wear is to secure that side. Thing that basically takes care of the actors, so they can take care of the characters. And whether that be directing it, producing it, editing it with other people that help me along the way, and finding that I just do what I need to do to basically secure that vision. It can be a little hectic sometimes, and you feel like you're running around like a chicken with its head cut off. But I feel like that's
just a little hectic.
Just a little bit. Erica knows a little bit about this, but having to, in between takes and just be like, "Hey, you good?" But yeah, it's taken a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. So Twilight Time had this whole insomniac quality to it. Why did you choose to explore sleep deprivation?
Yeah.
I had sleep paralysis a lot as a kid.
Oh.
I didn't really know why that was the case. I had this visceral memory of being in my childhood home and being in like my little bed with like my Jurassic Park covers and everything like that. And then there was like this figure that was just sitting on my chest.
Oh
And
my
it wouldn't go
God.
away. And I had this happen frequently at different times in my life, but very viscerally when I was a kid. It wasn't until later that I did more research and, thank you, Internet and Google, that I found out that things like this happen randomly when we're in times of turmoil. And around that time, I had just lost my great-grandmother when I was a kid when that started happening. And I noticed very particularly that whenever there are moments of trauma, whether it be loss or just going out and existing, it brings out internal stuff. Whether that can be something else out there or something else internally, we don't really know. But I like the idea of playing within that, and being an insomniatic creature and night owl myself as a creative, I feel like I land up being constantly like going to sleep at like times where I probably should have been doing this at this time, but like 4 in the morning writing, just not going to sleep, and it just tends to happen. So I like the idea of just playing with the witching hour and all that stuff and seeing what happens.
Oh, that's
awesome.
impressive. That's impressive because my bedtime is like 11 o'clock. I'm like exhausted. That's impressive.
Mine should be 2, definitely.
Oh man.
If not 8.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a solid like 9:45 p.m.
You are?
None.
So Erica, are you like a morning person then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm neither. I am neither a morning person nor am I a night owl. I am a middle of the day kind of guy.
Wow.
If there's like something to do, if I'm out and doing something, I can stay up, till all hours of the morning. But I prefer not to.
Wow. And you've always been that way, like
yeah. So that's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not always. When I was in college, I had, you know, my party phase in college, staying up till 4 in the morning doing God knows what. But I got over that pretty quickly. I'm a little grandpa.
I know this is a little
It's
off
very
script,
accurate.
but like, how did you guys get together? Marcel, how did you pick Erica? Erica, how did you find Marcel? Like, how is it a story you could share?
Erica's, yeah, no,
it is a story we can share. It's just
I love
there's negative. Yeah, there's like negative people involved in it
There's
that
lore.
we no longer speak to.
There's so much lore.
There's lots of lore.
Yeah.
There's lots of lore in mine and Marcel's relationship. But long story short, we met through a person that I was dating at the time and living with. And he and Marcel worked together. And it was kind of like they were friends at first, and like Marcel's his friend. But, you know, events ensued, and now Marcel is my friend and not his.
That's a great way to put it. Very diplomatic.
No, and
that's like the most diplomatic way I can say it. Because trust me, y'all, I could go off, but I will not. I am going to be professional and I am going to keep things diplomatic. But yeah, we don't speak to that person anymore. And now me and Marcel are friends and we work together.
That is very.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Nor would I. What I can add to that as well, Jim, I always saw Erica coming into my place job. I'm just like, you're funny. Like, you're like, she always cracked me the fuck, because we got like working coffee work and baristing. It's like you get a variety and swath of people that come in. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, and sometimes. But it's Erica was never that case, and I was still figuring out what I want to do, radio or something like that. And when I was like, let's try doing film and like let's just do something like that, I had like this heavy accented black and white like genre piece that I wanted to do, and I'm like, well, I know someone already that can like lift this shit up and do it no problem, and that was her. And quite frankly, I had no doubts in my mind that it was going to be executed perfectly. And I feel like anything that I have done since then, I know at least when it comes to, maybe we may not have the camera, we may not have certain lights or something like that, but when it comes to the core of the character and someone that can dissect and do the work and make sure that's done, I already got it right there. And since then, we've just become like really great friends. But you can't always get that with, like, you know, we look for that in that line of work, but it's never, it has to happen organically.
And Erica, was that like this year, like your first film, or because you seem like a natural when it comes to acting and everything?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, my background is in theater.
Okay.
I studied theater in college. I was actually, I started out studying acting, and then I never made it past acting B. I failed acting B twice. And so after that, I switched gears and switched to like scenic design and scenic painting. But all the while on the side doing acting and auditioning for shows at the college that I was at, Fullerton College, go Hornets. But I would perform in their shows in their main stage and in the Black Box Theater, and also paint the shows in tandem at the same time. And I think in like 2015, I branched out into like community theater. So I've been acting in some way, shape, or form since I was like acting like seriously in some way, shape, or form since I was like 18 or 19 years old.
Oh wow.
So I have all the textbook stuff there because I went to school for it, but then I have also what I think is even more important is the experience. Because you can sit in a classroom all day learning about this shit, but it's completely different when you actually do it for real.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and like, but I got into film, honestly, like, man, when was Dear Hearts. That was like
We did that
20,
in 2018. We did it in 2018, or at least a year later.
2018. Yeah. Around like 2017, 2018, I started getting into film with Marcel and then another director, writer, producer friend of mine. Just little short films, you know, nothing more than like 15 minutes. And I really, really liked it. Yeah, I really liked it. And then when Marcel came to me with Twilight Time, he said, it's a horror. I said, say no more. I'm in.
Of course.
Yeah. Horror. I'm a huge horror fan. It's my number one favorite genre. I've been watching horror films since I was out of the womb. So the second that he said, like, I want to do a horror and I want you to be involved, I was like, cool. Any capacity you want me involved in, I'm in. Like, let's go.
Awesome. Yeah, because they're telling Marcel like he needs to make more films so
Yeah.
you can be in it, so we can like meet more of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's the
Marcel,
plan.
give me more work. Give me more work, Marcel. Give me more work.
The follow-up is already written, so
Okay. That's great. Marcel, that's great. So can we say like 2025 you'll submit it to the festival or no?
I'd say so.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
I would say so. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Let's manifest it just to like get it out there. The script is pretty
Yeah.
much
2025.
done.
Gonna be our
It's
year.
just
Yeah.
all the
I'm-
little
2025.
minutia.
Yeah, I mean, you're already a winner, so you kind of
Yeah.
already have a shoe in already. So it's like, oh, Marcel, okay. Louise, we have to, just put it through. So yeah. Oh, and it stars Erica again?
Right,
Okay, no,
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
This is going through. This is going through. We're fine.
It's way too
Don't
early to
worry
be
about that
gassed
one.
up like this.
No, because
I know this is dangerous, you guys.
No. I mean, and I don't say this lightly because before Louise came aboard, like when she was because I reached out for like volunteers. I think it was September. I was literally doing this by myself, maybe a few other people, and I watched all the films. So the fact that like Marcel's film, like it got picked, and like just like everything was so great about it, even his directing style, like producing and writing style was like so good. I had to show it. I was like, this is a winner. It's like Marcel just like has a lot of talent. So I haven't said this.
I know,
Louise,
right?
you've been with me. Louise, you've been with me on these interviews. I haven't like gassed anyone up like this before. So like, don't let it go to your head. But if you want to rewatch the video and then listen to it on like your favorite podcast and stuff like that, platform iTunes or whatever, then go ahead.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know it's like you guys are so creative and even like Marcel and Erica, like you guys hone in on your craft and just it's a lonely process in a lot of ways, but then when you get that validation, it just makes it all worth it. So yeah. So I'll let Louise, I'll turn it over to
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So in Twilight Time, the main character, Erica, wears the Cure t-shirt, and I thought that was awesome. The film has a sort of a hardcore, dark fantasy style to it. Is that why you chose one of the original goth rock bands for your costume?
Honestly, the reasoning why I chose
Oh, I'm wearing the Cure shirt right now. You're wearing the Cure shirt right now.
I have to be on brand.
I'm wearing an Alice in
I have
Chains
to
shirt.
be.
Oh, I love Alice in Chains.
So long story short, I had a playlist that I listen to whenever I'm like usually put it on during Halloween, but like as years have gone by, I'm just like, we can play this in December, we can play this in July, it doesn't matter. And whenever it's a lot of like gothic stuff that's being played in there, a little bit of synthwave, a little bit of dark wave, things like that. But I just love like this image was what always like stuck with me of Robert Smith. So like I really loved it. And when we were trying to figure out what worked, I saw this one day at a thrift shop and I just grabbed it. And then when we got to the final points of like, all right, nitty gritty, what are we going to use for your costume? I had this and I'm like, let's see if this works. And then when she had it on, I'm like, no, like that's it. It just works. And
Right. That's tremendous.
thematically, everything.
And did you listen to The Cure or any other goth rock bands while working on the mood boards and writing the scripts? I know you just went into this a little bit. Anything on that?
Yeah, so my mood boards, one of the biggest, if not, I would say a huge reason behind any story that I write is music. I go back to like when I was like 12, listening to like John Williams' Revenge of the Sith score and just like going like ham in my imagination. I primarily listen to The Cure, Echo and the Bunnymen, and a little bit of Depeche Mode. But primarily a lot
Oh, wow,
of
cool.
what I would play would be oldies and like vintage 40s, 30s, and 50s music. I find a beautiful irony in playing something that sounds so technically melodic and pristine, played around something insanely morose. And so that irony plays a lot into the just yes, anything that kind of comes out basically. So that's a lot of what was playing on the mood board.
That's the Tron. And then was the hair and makeup also inspired by The Cure?
Erica,
Bro,
you tell
I
them.
just look like Robert Smith. Just look like this is it's
You're
so funny.
perfect.
I mentioned that to Marcel. I was like that question cracks me up because
We get it all the time.
I didn't wear a lick. I didn't wear a lick of makeup the
Really?
entire shooting process. Yes,
Oh,
no,
natural.
yes, yeah. I'm not in my real life. I don't wear a lot of makeup to begin with. You know, and for me personally, it wasn't even that much of a discussion between me and Marcel. It was kind of just like no makeup, yeah, no makeup, because it just made sense for the character, where she was at, the state that she was in. I didn't
Right.
want I wanted the continuity, you know, because like I think about it, if I'm in a depressive state, I'm not getting up and doing myself up every single day, you know.
Right.
It's no makeup, no bra, no hair, like just you know. So and that's kind of where it came from, and it's so funny because all the time, even before this film, people all the time say, "I ever told you look like Robert Smith." So it just happened to be a nice synchronicity that I look like Robert Smith and I'm wearing a Cure shirt.
That's awesome.
It just happened. Yeah, this is
That's the
what I look
coolest
like
thing
all the
ever.
time. This is what I look like all the time, guys.
That's awesome. Erica, I know you talked about like when Marcel said, you know, he said it was a horror film, he wrote it, and you were like, yep, sign me up. But so while it was shooting, are there any particular eerie moments or things that you can share with us on set or anything that you felt? I will say the particular scene that I loved was when you were reading the letter after you found out, like, you know, with your best friend, she's gone, and you took that letter out of the box, and then like you saw something like in the corner, but I was like, oh my God, what the hell is she looking at? What is that? Like, what's going on? And then it cut to the other scene. But so is there anything particular you can share either on set or offset?
Yeah. Well, with a horror, you know, most of the stuff you shoot is pretty eerie. If you're doing it right. One of the moment that you mentioned, yeah, the reading of the letter. The reason why I think that landed so well is because I was actually just reading a letter that my co-star wrote, maybe like, you know, 20 minutes before that shot, 30 minutes before that shot, and I didn't read the letter until we did the first take of it. So, you know, my whole aim was just to react to it naturally in character, and we had, you know, all the lights turned off in the back of my apartment, so having that kind of encroaching darkness to reference was a really nice touch on Marcel's part, and our DP too. But yeah, that moment was really eerie, and I think though the eeriest moment for me is in the actual feature, the 5 minute, so 6 minute one, the original one that we submitted, is the moment where Violet comes back into her room and the creature is in her bed.
Yeah.
And literally during shooting, just standing there and watching my co-star just work in the bed as the creature, I was fucked up. Like, that was like seeing her in the makeup was like being a giddy schoolgirl, like seeing something, you know, really cool. Like, because seeing creature makeup is always really exciting for me, but then seeing her in character in that room, in that lighting, no sound, nothing, just seeing her writhe around was just so cool, but two, just so eerie. I love that moment. I love that final moments between her creature and our main character. I love that moment so much. It's one of those eerie moments for me, honestly.
Yeah, well, I did too. I was like, holy shit, this is like awesome. And makeup, and she's scared of it. And I was like, no, it's over. It should have been a feature. Like, so
I want more. I want more.
yeah. And that's what you like when you're watching a film. It's like that's what you want, like you want more. And I'm so
Yes.
glad you guys did the extended version
Yes.
too, because it's like showed the interaction between you and your co-star or your friend, and your guys' relationship, and then what was happening like prior to that, and then what led to it was like really great. So yeah. So it was great.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that.
We split up
so-
the question, guys.
What?
Oh,
Got
the
it,
questions.
got it.
Yeah.
Oh, so
We're
it's your turn me now. All right.
So-
got it.
Okay. Well,
Trying to do it seamless, but
what I can say from my perspective, I was dealing with a couple
go
of
ahead.
weird things happening at that time period. There was some
Yeah, you were.
people. There was some people that I was involved with at that time, and there was trickling bits of things that were coming around me, energy. And
you guys are so
we were trying to
diplomatic. It's
purge
just like
that
you
and
need
get
a
rid of
CIA
that.
agent.
You know,
Well, this is gonna go public.
yeah. Listen, if this wasn't, thank you, Erica. Yeah. That being said, I had sleep paralysis for the first time in since pre-COVID, the 2 days before we shot that, and I do believe I remember Erica. Even we were having a conversation about having to cleanse the room. It's this room, which is where I've had sleep paralysis in this room before, like way when I moved into this when I was younger, and it hasn't happened since then. I had an instance I vividly remember, just kind of when you're in the days of wait, am I not? It's a dream, whatever. And I swear I could feel the tension in the room just change, the weight and the air just flicker a little bit. And I thought, hey, I'm I still live at home with my fam. I'm unsure if my dog walked in, my mom walked out.
Yeah.
No one was there. Everyone was in the room. And I just, that was just the vibe that I got. And there was some cleansing involved. And I experienced some weird stuff. But personally, as far as seeing everything come to fruition and stuff like that, as far as the makeup and all that, it didn't freak me out. And because I was just so giddy about seeing characters and I saw the same thing. I felt this is the second time I felt it, but it's even more visceral when it's like Erica said, makeup. I'm a huge proponent of practical effects and just how when something's realized and it's physically there, it exists. And I think that seeing Lauren in the makeup and having that process and seeing how it kind of all came to fruition, while it could have freaked people out, and I remember people were asking, "Oh, what have you done?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is what I've done." And they're like, "Ew, it's gross." And I'm like, "Nah, it's cool." I love. I'm nerdy about that stuff. I think it's so cool. So yeah, and I wanted her to get freaked out. So that's more what was interesting to me, is seeing her freaked out, so we can get that reaction.
Awesome. Stories, I'll turn it over to you.
So, what inspired the main character's stoicism?
I really love stoic characters and people. I think that there is something to be said about like people who kind of walk around like, hey, I've been through life. I have a lot of shit that's happened to me, and I walk a different way about it. And primarily, most of my characters that I write are stoic. They have gone through something. They've been dealt with trauma in some way, shape, or form. Violet is going through a completely different level of trauma chapter in her life, and she hasn't healed yet. She's going through the process of it, but it hasn't happened. And when we started moving around with because initially that wasn't the case when we started crafting the story, but when we started pivoting and moving and changing, okay, well, it's going to be this background now. I felt turning that into a way to utilize grief and loss for my sake, for what I've gone through, but from what like we've all gone through on our own, and how to implement that into a character. I think stoic works best because you can kind of put any of what you're feeling and what you've gone through onto what you're seeing on screen or who you're seeing. So it just naturally worked right there.
Yeah. And like for her, honestly, like, coming from like a character analysis point of view, like she hasn't even started the healing process yet. Like, she's still mid grieving process, mourning process. Like, the girl can't even leave her fucking house. You
Right,
know?
right.
Like, healing is not even in sight yet. You know, the thing that lingers in my mind is like, how is that process impacted after the final event of the film? Like, is it completely just at a standstill? Does she go 2 steps back? Like,
Right,
you know,
right.
so that's gonna be something that will be revealed, I'm sure. But yeah, so healing process for her, yeah, healing process in the film is like not even happening. She is full blown depression mode, like, just no movement at all whatsoever. She's sitting in it, you know?
Yeah. So Erica, how did can you talk about your character arcs that were expanded or developed further in the extended version compared to the original version? Because you dealt with so much emotion in the extended version. And so just curious to know what your mindset was and how did you develop those arcs for the film?
Yeah, absolutely. My job is made easy when the arcs are very clear in the writing. I personally thought, reading all the scripts for the hours to Twilight Time and the extended version, the arcs are very clear. It goes from, like, happy normal life. This is just your life. You're just going through the motions. You have your best friend and you guys hang out and you're happy. And then slowly but surely things start to kind of change and, your friend starts to go through some stuff and you're worried about them. And then the worst possible case scenario happens and then you're dealing with the aftermath of that. Yeah. And for me personally, like, my headcanon, Violet, and me and Marcel have talked about this before and you confirmed it. But Violet was in love with Christine. Like, hardcore. And going from that, and I feel like a lot of people have been in that position before where, like, you fall for your friend, but you don't want to lose them as a friend, so you keep them close, but you kind of have to bury those feelings for them if you love them so much you don't want to spend any time away from them, so those feelings just grow and grow and you have to push and push.
Right.
And so having that transition from, like, the pure friendship to the unrequited love to losing that love in the most permanent way possible and mourning both your friend and that love, that you never even got to experience. I try to make that come through as best as possible. But for me, like, even if that doesn't come through, even if that's not obvious to the audience, like, that's not really a loss for me because I saw my performance and I felt like, it was just writing that line,
Right.
So I really tried to get that arc from, everything being fine to nothing being fine at all. And the emotions that kind of come with loss and grief and, mourning people who have left us so suddenly. And then obviously implementing the fear, because it wasn't just a normal, death. There was something supernatural attached to it. And she gets all of that in that letter, that she reads before she accidentally out and leaves quickly. She gets all of that in that letter. So, just the arc of, life and loss was a big thing that I tried to achieve.
No, that's great. And you did, like, such a great job. It was, like, flawless on screen, which was great. And then, so Marcel, no, seriously. So Marcel, in terms of the writing process for the extended version, how did you approach that? And did you find it liberating or challenging to revisit the story, or you already wrote it and it was just easy to go back to?
It was a little bit of both, to be honest. There was no plan on extending it to any degree up until
no, this was so last minute.
No, I guess this literally, the first idea of doing this was I wanted this, like, Twilight Time, which was the one that we screened in New York, to be an exercise for myself, like a little class project for, like, let's do something. Last one we did all dialogue. Let's do no dialogue. Let's play with prosthetics. Let's do a horror, just a little nightmare, and let's move on to other stuff after that. However, the film bug hit, and getting back into the group thing just was like, we expanded this story from being initially, which was going to be Violet was supposed to be staring at herself when she wakes up. So it was going to be Erica in the makeup looking at herself. But logistically, it's just not, an actor needs to act amongst someone else. And to get that reaction, that's just what it is. And when we started moving into that, we created this entire backstory, and there's things you can pick up in that original short. But the idea to be able to expand onto that was something I was like, I think I remember, I'm like, hey, you want to do some like audio dramas? Like we can do like a recording, almost skinamarink it, just very subtle things. And I happen to be really good friends with the cinematographer of the hours version, the extended versions, Andrew Sanchez, phenomenal guy. And he was just like, I got a really brand new camera. Let's shoot it on there. Let's go for it. And similar to like anytime I work with someone that's professional in the field or just has like that, I just trust them. I'm like, you know what? We can go to Vegas. I don't know how that's going to make sense, but I believe it. Let's do it. Because he had that passion and he had that drive, and it's a leap of faith. And I believed in him, and I already had Erica, I had Lauren, and I had everyone else that helped me with those things. But the writing process was very, it took place within a month, and a couple of just like going on my notes, and I had to like turn it from the note app to final draft, just to kind of like, hey, everyone can look at these and figure out how we're going to block it and how we're going to do it. But it was very quick.
This guy had like a new script like every day. It was crazy. It was absolutely insane. I would get a script, I would read it and be like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then like 36 hours later, he'd be like, here's another one. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Have you locked yourself in your room and you're pumping out scripts? Like, Jesus, man. And like all of them were great. And those were all the ones that we just like used in the final cuts. And I'm just like, he just manifested them out of thin air, and it fucking worked.
Wow. Please.
Yeah.
So Erica, as an actress in a horror film, how do you balance maintaining suspense without revealing too much too soon?
That was the biggest challenge for me, honestly, because this was my first horror that I ever acted in, period. And something that has always been very intimidating, or what seemed like a Herculean task for me as an actor, would be to portray fear. Because you don't, unless you're doing like, like a slapstick slasher film, you don't want to be too corny. You don't want to be too this. You want to hit, and like, how do you recreate fear? That is such a visceral emotion that happens so naturally, and it's hard to like recreate it on the spot. So rather than stressing myself out with that and running the risk of revealing things too soon, because you don't want to portray fear before you're supposed to, right? You don't want to give anything away, like you said. So rather than playing on the fear and setting myself up for failure, I just focused on an emotion that I'm a lot more familiar with, which is anxiety. And rather than trying to portray fear or I'm scared or what have you, I would just portray anxiety, depression, loss, that vapid kind of stoicism that Marcel writes so well, and then just let it happen naturally. Like even in that last shot, the shot that's just right here and she's like crying, like that I wasn't going for fear in that moment, because I knew if I did, it would come across as disingenuous. So it was just anxiety, like the same way that in that moment there's shots of like all Polaroids, Polaroids, and then the creature, and the Polaroids, then Violet, and the Polaroids. I was also replaying those emotions and replaying those situations in my head and replaying those moments with my best friend / person I was in love with, and that's where the tears came from, and that's where the anxiety and the sadness came from. And it came across, I think, as fearful, in the very end. So yeah, anxiety and nerves was something, because anxiety is really just fear fear is anxiety and
Right.
anxiety is fear. When you're scared, you are anxious. Your fight or flight kicks in. Like you fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you know? And rather than portraying fear, I was trying to portray the emotional responses that are attached to being scared. And it worked for me, and I just hope that it worked well for the film. You know, because that's really all you can do as an actor is like do your best and then like hope that it works. You know, you can't do more than your best. You know, you can't do 110%. You can just do your best, and if it doesn't work, then try something different. If it works, great, keep doing that.
Right.
Wow.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
it's
So, Marcel, were there any scenes or ideas that didn't make it into the original film, but found their way into the extended version?
Honestly, no. To be very frank, this was the one thing that was, and I remember when I spoke with Renee after we screened it, and she mentioned how like it should have. Like, I really wanted it to be longer. Like that's just like, I really like wish it was like a feature or it was just a little bit more. I intended this to be very short. The minute I started looking and combing through all of the footage, the raw files, we had it locked and set. We got it all of our shots that we intended, most of them. But I had this underlying thing like, I'm very happy with this. I feel like we could have added more stuff to it. So I think that the only thing that I wanted to expand onto it because it just worked so well was the relationship and the friendship that they had.
Yeah.
Which I was happy that we captured very well. One of my favorite scenes in the extended one is there's two. There's the moment that they have when they're coming back home from like a late night out and just a comfort moment. It's just a moment of serene, just tranquility between two friends that have been, one's been like the rock for each other, the older sister, the one that's just kind of been there. And it's just, I think that tenderness is plays very well between them and the loss that they have, specifically in, which is my favorite one, is the oneer we have with the phone where Erica's just having to hear this call of her friend going through something crazy.
Oh yeah, that sucks. That thing sucks.
Yeah, that was
sucks to watch. Sucks to watch.
Oh. So what was the production?
One of my favorites
go ahead.
is the
Oh no, go ahead. What's your favorite? Yeah. Yep. Positive.
Well, one of my favorites is the no audio, no dialogue scene in the diner.
Oh yeah.
It's just
that was a great shot.
Like we get that dialogue. Man, friggin'
Andrews.
He killed it. Our DP killed it. Andrew was amazing with that one. But like, it's one of my favorites because there's zero dialogue. You don't even know their names. And you get such a clear picture of their relationship and their rapport and the love that they have and how comfortable they are with each other. And it just makes I think it makes that final film all that much more impactful because like you take that journey from the very beginning until the very end. And I think especially having that as the first, one of the first establishing like shots of the two of them, it's just perfect. And again, that's just a testament to Marcel's writing because there's zero dialogue and it's all just shots and acting and improv. It was all improv, Marcel gave us a prompt and we ran with it, and it helps because again, with Marcel casting those two people that have really great chemistry together, who can just interact and have it be filmable. It just, I think it does wonders for establishing that relationship.
That was
back to you, Renee.
No, that was a beautiful scene, and I'm glad you brought that up too, like right in the beginning. Marcel, what was the production process like compared to the original version versus this extended version? Did you find any challenges with certain
original
scenes?
I'm gonna be honest, I felt much more free shooting the hours and the extended cuts versus shooting the main one that we did. The main one was done efficiently and quickly and done. We had a really really good solid team on both productions.
Right.
Granted, the whole thing is one thing, The first one we had Micah Goldfarb, a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, stellar working. He came in nearly last minute and like saved the production and did a phenomenal job of lighting it, rigging everything, and making sure that it worked. That being said, just like anyone that's been on a set, hurry up and wait. You have to like, there are people that are moving like a pit stop, and it is, you need to go. I get stressed. So that can sometimes go a little bit and bleed into the vibe sometimes. Now with the hours production, that's personally my level of filmmaking that I like to make, where we're just people making something together. We're all professional in our own paths, and it just got done by ourselves. I thought the way that me, Andrew, Erica, and Lauren worked so well with each other, as well as our friend Patrick working with making sure things are well secured, I thought it and we went from just pretty much guerrilla filmmaking. Like the scenes were the first one where it was just me, and you were just seeing a lot of just scenic stuff of the forest and woods. A lot of that was just me and Andrew, or Andrew on his own on his free time, just saying like, hey, I found this shop, I think this works. And we just kind of went and did it. The people at George's Hamburger, which was the location of where we made it, Pops, the hamburger spot that they're at. I love that spot. I've been going there since I was in high school. That is like, they're known for their burritos, and you got to dip in the rat. And so, family,
George's is awesome.
They literally, every time I said like, "Hola chamaco, hola mijo," and I'm just like, how's it going? And then like I was like, hey, can we just like, could we use it? And they're like, oh yeah, go ahead. Just super nice. They literally, I'm like,
it pays to be a regular.
It literally went from being like, hey, can we like, we'll be outside, we're not going to bother anyone, to them being like, you want some fries? You want some, like, can we move this? And they're like, yeah, go ahead, okay. And then you can only get that type of like work if you just go out there and do it. I understand the professionality of like make things done, and there's a system of things, but I'm also just like, I think the indie level is like, you're gonna get certain work through that. And that's just
And to piggyback on the whole guerrilla filmmaking thing, guerrilla indie filmmaking thing, like, and I also played production designer for all of these the extended version and for Twilight Time. And we'd be like in between takes, and Marcel would come to me and be like, hey, impromptu, can we do this for the next scene? And I'd be like, yeah, I can figure that out. And then we figure it out in the 5 minutes in between shots, and then I'd make a big old mess, and he'd be like, perfect. I'm like, okay, great. Or for because a lot of the hours were shot in my studio apartment.
Okay.
And we would be moving on to the next shot, and I was like, okay, like this is what it's gonna be, and I would have my idea, like, I want to have a glass of wine in this shot. And we're like, okay, I'm like, I don't have any wine. And he's like, okay. So I'd make this little concoction in between shots, and I would try to make it look like wine. Does this look like wine? I'd be like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. Put it in the shot.
Wow.
And, it was very impromptu, very like on the fly, very guerrilla filmmaking. Like, hey, can we do this? I don't know. Can we? Let's try. And then figure it out, and then make it happen. Zero budget, like, like literally zero budget, just using what's around my apartment. Which I personally love, because it forces you to do creative problem solving.
Right.
Which is just such a valuable skill to have on any film set, like creative problem solving, because problems are going to show up. And if you can get creative about how you solve them, it can actually work really, really.
Right. And also, you guys work so well.
That's nice.
Oh, yeah. No, and you guys work so well together. I mean, okay, so you guys work so well together. Like, even you telling me your story and how you guys like met and everything else, and even on set, because being on set can be very stressful. And the fact that you guys, like, Marcel was like, can you do this? And you're like, okay, I'll figure it out. And like, you guys work very well. So that's then also a key factor too. So in the film, Marcel, too, were there any specific like horror techniques that you used in the extended version that was different than the original version? Or is it just pretty much the same? Like, you just have these crazy ideas in your head and like, it just happens.
Yeah. So I specifically wanted to capture, there are certain scenes that really, from some of my favorite films that I wanted to imbue. And some of that was the still shots. I feel that building tension, and you don't necessarily, my favorite horror is usually psychological, Hereditary, The Shining, like Midsummer, like a lot of things like that, or It Follows, where we're just looking at an image and there's something unsettling about it, whether it be through the score or the framing or something about the lighting that just makes you feel uneasy the more that you're there. And I wanted to utilize that a lot. Robert Eggers is one of my biggest idols when it comes to how it's done. I remember watching The Witch in theaters, and that was what really pushed me to want to be a filmmaker. In 2015, a lot of his framing and the way he puts his, especially in The Witch, is just still shots. And I wanted to utilize a little bit of that. There's a little bit of, in the scene with the light, that's very similar to The Invisible Man from 2020, where it's just, you're just showcasing very improvisational, again, back to the indie filmmaking things, where it's like, no budget, let's see what we got, put us in a cave, let's see what we can do with it. And I wanted to see how much we could kind of imbue with not much. And the main thing that I feel is a big start of this are two composers that we had for this, both Marcus, who's my friend of mine, who False Figures Appearing Real, he had all the music for the Hours ones, and my our friend Jonathan John Scores, who did the score for the final one. The music aspect adds a lot to it, and I think there's a lot of musicality, and I feel like a lot of they're not silent pictures, but it's mainly just mood and vibe. And to me, that's another aspect of like horror that I really like to imbue into that.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's great.
So indie filmmaking often requires, I'm doing it better. Should I continue?
Yes.
Okay. Indie filmmaking often requires solutions due to budget constraints, creative solutions. Can you share any unique or innovative approaches you've taken to bring your horror vision to life?
Yeah. So a lot of that has to do, I feel like, with the production design, as well as the there's two instances that I can bring up. The first was, there were a lot of wides that were intended for this short, specifically the original. I gutted my closet, which is like, you can't see it, but it's right behind this monitor right here. And the intention was to, when we get into the room, we showcase how, like, a wide bit of the room. We got there, Dea, we shot with some beautiful anamorphics that we were able to get last minute, and was not meant to be like, these were from like, I think they're like from like the 70s or something like that. They're vintage.
Yeah, 70s.
And
yeah.
I when we got there, we put the lens in and thought that automatic. I'm like, all right, it's not gonna get a wide. We're gonna have to work with it. And then just like that compromise, and at some point, I feel like this is always going to be the case. If you're making something, it's just like the nature and the spirit of film or production, even like on the stage, where you got to see how you can move. It's almost like, it's like, how are you going to pivot? All right, cool. Your leg's missing now. How can you hop? You are now like camera B is gone. We got to make this work with one shot, or someone is calling sick. Let's see what we can do. And granted, there wasn't anything drastic with this one, but seeing how we can frame it differently, even though the storyboards were done a certain way, and we kind of move that way. Another one was the production design. Erica mentioned before, we didn't really have that much of a budget. It was whatever I wanted to put into it. It was all self-funded. And there would be aspects where we would get the wine, or we would need to be very meticulous on, there's a shot in the very last one before the main short, which we showcase a little still frame of an egg in a glass of water. And if that is a very specific look and thing that we were trying to capture, which is like basically the huevo in Latin culture. And that is if no one's familiar with it, it is a form of healing that is done, usually someone's grandmother, grandfather, like the elder that will be doing that, where they say like sana sana kuliterorana. They'll get like an egg, wrap it in like a towel, and then just cleanse your body. And it then it's put into a water, and then you sleep next to it at night. And if there's something red in there, blood, then that's the evil inside of it. And so we imbued that into that. There's a little bit of red in there. So we were able to get that done with just food dye and things like that. So it was just very simple. We don't really know how it's going to work out, but let's see what's up.
Yeah. Yeah. And like from a production design point of view, like he said, it was all self-funded. Most of everything you see in every single shot came from my apartment or Marcel's room, stuff that we already own. I'm a little crow, so I collect thousands of things. So I would just kind of like comb through my apartment and be like, okay, what works for this character? What do I have that works for this character? And luckily, it's a character that is very close in relation to me as a person in real life. So a lot of what I had was going to work for this character as like set dressing and scenic design. And anything that I didn't have, I just dug through the trash can for it, you know? Or I would finish, I'd be sitting in Marcel's bed, you know, for filming Twilight Time, and I would be drinking coffees because Marcel has like the whole barista setup at home, and he makes such good coffee. So I'm like, Marcel, coffee.
Occupational hazard at this point.
And any literally, and any like empty glass I would have would just become a part of the set.
Wow.
Or any leftover food that I was eating would just become a part of the set. I would ask our production manager to get a can of beer, pour it out, crush it, and give it to me, and I would just put it where it needed to be. You know, I brought my own clothes from home to litter the bed with, because when I go through a depressing episode, I get the clothes pile on the bed. The depression pile of clothes on the bed. So to put that in her room as well. You know, so it's all from our pockets. It's all from our pockets, and that requires nothing but creative problem solving.
Yeah. No, it was great. Wow. You gave a lot of secrets away, because honestly, when I was watching, I was like, oh, they rented out this place. You know, like it was just done so well. I was just like, wow, it was your guys' own place.
So well.
Yeah.
It was our, that's why it looks so lived in, because we lived there. Right. And that's the cool thing with indie filmmaking, is that like if you use what you have, like 50% of the job is done already. You don't have to make it look lived in if you're just using your own living space. You just got to make some room for the camera.
Create like a little depressing hole, and it's like, this is my room.
Exactly. And I was actively going through a depression at the time, so I would just take my apartment and move it somewhere else.
So Marcel, what role do practical effects, CGI, and other technical elements play in your film, and how do you decide which methods to use?
I feel like they're, regardless of what they are, it's all tools. It's knowing how to basically utilize whatever it may be, whether it's CGI, practical. I think that they all belong to some degree in a production. It's just finding out where they belong. Originally, when we shot this thing, when I wrote it and I was penning in like, I want to do this, I was planning this all to be CGI because I didn't know anyone that did practical effects. That wasn't even a question. I didn't know how much that would cost. I didn't know how to meet people like that. That just wasn't my, I wasn't talking to people like that. At a certain point when I got to, I worked on this feature called Mid-Century with a producer I would work with when I was in film school. I met the makeup artist on there, one of the makeup artists. Her name was Hannah, and she quickly got in connection with me, and we started just gelling very well. And she told me basically, hey, yeah, no, I have these are some of the work that I've done. This is kind of what I'm trying to do. And it naturally worked in like that. But that being said, there is also some CGI in the film, just very minimal things. I feel like CGI, I like to take the, I think it's a Fincher approach, where it's just very like minimal and it's in the background. You kind of don't really see it. And I think that's the point of it. The minute that you see the magic trick, the illusion's gone. And I think anything that will basically create that thing, whether it be the acting, the makeup, or the visual effects, that can be working. Look at the new Planet of the Apes movies. I don't think that those would be as impactful if they had not gone with the stop motion and they went with the makeup. as much as I love the makeup from the originals, these new ones hit a little bit differently. And I think that is what made Matt Reeves' choice on that one beneficial. And I think that anytime I'm in a position where I'm like, all right, let's see how this works. If we can get a makeup and a creature and it looks like insanely disgusting and gnarly, let's create that. So I just happen to meet Hannah and Wolverine VFX, Chuck Dunlin, who did some of the CGI on our film. So it just ended up working out. But I will always use practical if I can. But if need to, I will pivot.
Wow.
Thank you. So we're winding down to interviews. Louise and I each have 2 questions left for you both to answer. One of them is like, what do you hope audiences will take away from your performance and the film as a whole, which they can find on YouTube, and we'll make sure we'll put a link in the description when this is posted. But what do you guys hope for audiences to take away from it?
Personally, for me, I don't ask for a lot because I personally feel like that's going to set me up for disappointment. But if anything, if I want audiences to take away anything from my performance in the film, it would just be to have a good time watching it. You know, whether you like horror or not, like, I just hope that people enjoy it to some degree, or they pick out something that they think is cool, whether it be the special effects makeup or the lighting or the incredible score that our audio designers did. Whatever it is, I just hope that people find something enjoyable about it and something memorable, you know?
That rocked.
Yeah.
And as far as what I would want anyone to get from it, anything that at the minute I release something, it doesn't really belong to me. And I think the minute I started accepting that was when I found a different relationship with what I make and what I'm putting out there and how I'm going to maneuver. So I've had people watch the film, take something that I never would have intended into it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's what you took. And I think if you watch the film and you come up with anything and you have an opinion or a thought or a feeling or it invokes something for you, that means everything to me. There's a lot of talented people that worked on this film and friends of mine that put hours of sweat, and it was a labor of love. So I think that at the end of the day, if you love horror, if you like spooky stuff, give it a watch. And I think the main thing I'm going to take away is that I just like horror stuff, and I'd love to work with some really good people. And we had a good time with it, and I hope that was imbued into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
And since
and you can
this
do it yourself.
is the
It's
looks...
not. It's. So I was gonna. And if you want to make something, go ahead and go and do it. It's taking that leap of faith and propelling yourself to give yourself the motivation is the biggest feat, aside from just writing it. Because we can always write something, we can always come up with something in the back of our heads, but it's until we do it ourselves and get up and go and do it that it's just kind of here until we make it something.
Yeah.
And since this is the Looks Creepy Hole podcast, what is the creepiest thing that has ever happened to you, and what is the coolest thing that has ever happened to you?
Well, just like my friend Marcel here, I've had a lot of spooky experience. That gene unfortunately runs in my family. So and I've learned how to kind of like keep it at bay, you know, because once you figure out that is something that exists in your life, you either open up to it or you close off to it. So depending on the day, I'll be open to it or closed to it. But definitely one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me was a long-running instance where there was this armoire or like wardrobe that was in my parents' house that had a nasty, nasty entity attached to it.
Oh my gosh.
And it was in a guest bedroom, and me and my sister, anytime we would go in there, we would get physically ill or we would get headaches. And my sister, unfortunately for her, she has the gift of seeing these entities, and she described to me what it looked like, and it was I know it's dangerous to kind of like even mention this thing's name, but it was a skinwalker.
Oh my God.
And it would,
Wow.
And my sister described to me this one because it wouldn't come downstairs. It would go to the very bottom stair, but it wouldn't come down to the first floor. So my sister described the story of it like following after her. She got down to the first floor and she went down the hallway and she looked back down the hallway and it was just on the stairs kind of fucking looking at her.
Oh my God.
And eventually we got rid of that armoire. We got rid of it and nothing's ever been a problem since. But for a while I couldn't even go into that side of the house just because I get the most wretched feeling and get so sick. But yeah, so that's probably one of the creepiest things that's ever happened to me.
That's more than creepy. I think that's the creepiest thing
and-
we've heard of on the podcast so far. Wow. All right, some lighter news.
Yeah,
the coolest
it was crazy.
thing.
It was crazy, man. In lighter news, coolest thing that's ever happened to me is probably being an artist. Being an artist, I am blessed to have an inclination towards art. It's just something I can't imagine my life without, being able to create things, whether it be a canvas painting or a film with one of my best friends, like, and that's what Marcel is. That's why I'm so love that Marcel's one of my best friends. And so, just creating stuff with the people that you love, is just one of the greatest and coolest things to ever happen to me, honestly.
That's great.
You know, I don't know if I have a Skinwalker story, but
Yeah, sorry, I kind of
you
set you
like,
up for failure with that
follow
one.
that up. Good luck.
Yeah, it came
but
real strong out the gate with that one.
I used to sleepwalk a little bit when I was a kid, and the house that I was in is no longer there anymore. It's on a different side of the city we're in right now. And I distinctly remember just having very like active imagination since I was young. But similar to the thing on my chest, there was a moment in which I got up. Something just, I remember distinctly, watched, I think, Finding Nemo, or like the whole, it was like 2003. And I was constantly awake, waking up in like, not like night terrors, but just like that feeling when you feel like you're falling, and something basically got me to get up and walk out into the middle of the house. And I distinctly remember, this is very weird, that I remember it being like my uncle. I thought it was my uncle that I was meeting in the middle of the living, and we were gonna go, like, I remember walking and my hand grabbing something, and we walked out into the front of the yard. And I was like in the days of like being awake and being close enough, I was like 9 years old. And then I remember just distinctly like waking up from that and becoming much more cognizant. And then I was just out in the middle of our yard. And I couldn't really describe it, so I started yelling. And eventually my mom came out and was like, "What the hell are you doing? How did you get outside, and like what's going on?" Don't really have an explanation for that. And I still don't really know. Maybe it could have been another variation of my sleep paralysis at that time. But I remember the feeling of that hand. And it didn't necessarily feel like my uncle's, but I think it should have been like an indicator. But it definitely felt human. And there was many instances that weren't just my own. My mom and my aunts and my uncle have mentioned stories that when they grew up in that house when they were kids, that they can't really explain. And just a lot of vibes that kind of gone in there. So I've tended to be a very like absorb and bring in energy like that somewhere or another. I can't really explain it as I've gotten older. I don't think that there is ways that I can explain it otherwise than acknowledging it. It's a very like distinctive vibe that I can recall upon, and I can know, okay, let's move a little bit differently. It's going down this road instead of this one. So yeah. As far as the coolest thing, film is one thing that really means a lot to me. But personally, for me, writing and understanding that it started off with journaling when I was like 18. You go through like heartbreak. You go through like the pangs of like, hey, I'm a person, but I'm a kid. Am I adult? Am I not? And understanding the freedom of which putting and pouring yourself onto a page or a note or whatever it can be, and what can come out of that, whether it be for yourself, for a narrative to heal others. I think that the minute I understood I can do something with this, and even if this is just for myself, that means more to me than anything else. But the fact that it can move other people is also what really meant a lot to me. And I've met a lot of great friends through just taking that leap of faith and being like, maybe I might have something to say, or I might want to put some of myself out there. And since then, it basically has just propelled my life to both become less introverted and more extroverted, and everything kind of just moves in that way.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was great. Like, even, your guys' journey, you guys are actually living your path, and you're walking your path, and like you're living your destiny. And that's what you're meant to do, is entertain people. You guys are super talented. We're so happy that you guys are a guest on the Looks Creepy Cool podcast, Marcel. So 2025, Louise and I should be expecting your next film. So that's great, starring Erica. No pressure. And again, everyone, Marcel, the Twilight Time was the 2023 Best Paranormal Short at the Haunted House FearFest Film and Video Game Festival. And he also won for Best Special Effects. And if anyone's in New York City, October 24th to the 26th, it's going to be even a bigger theater at the Triad Theater in New York City on the Upper West Side. So we're super excited about that. Louise and I are in the middle of, we've always been planning. So, it's just ramping up even further. So if you guys are ever in town, let us know. And thanks for being a guest on the podcast, and many more to come.
Yeah,
so
thanks
much
for
for
having
you.
us, guys.
Yay!
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
This was
Okay.
great.
Awesome. Okay.